Bringing a pet into your life is an exciting journey, but it can take unexpected turns when the animal doesn't match your initial expectations. While behavioral issues can often be resolved, what if the problem is deeply rooted in the pet's genetics? One Phoenix woman, Shelby Mayo, eagerly welcomed an adorable German Shepherd puppy named Ranger into her life. She looked forward to watching him grow into a healthy, normal-sized dog. However, as time passed, Shelby noticed some unusual traits in Ranger, leading her to seek a veterinarian's opinion. The revelation she received was far from ordinary. Initially, Shelby believed Ranger's small size was due to him being the runt of the litter. Yet, she decided to consult her vet when his growth remained stunted. The vet diagnosed Ranger with a parasite called coccidia, which likely hindered his growth. After treating the parasite, it became apparent that Ranger faced more challenges, including another parasite called Giardia and a neck infection. While Shelby attributed these ailments to bad luck, the vet expressed greater concern. Ranger's size and frequent health issues raised suspicions of pituitary dwarfism, a rare genetic mutation that affects a dog's growth. Confirming this condition proved challenging as most carriers don't display any symptoms. As Ranger underwent further examinations and was neutered, his condition worsened. He lost his appetite, shed fur, and suffered from dry, flaky skin, typical signs of pituitary dwarfism. Shelby had to accept that Ranger, at about 1 year old, would remain the size of a puppy. Fortunately, Shelby had documented Ranger's journey on Instagram, where a supportive community of fellow dwarf dog owners provided invaluable assistance. They recommended goat milk soap to alleviate Ranger's skin issues and encouraged monitoring his thyroid, as dwarf German Shepherds often suffer from hyperthyroidism. Following these suggestions, Ranger's fur grew back and his skin improved temporarily. However, he still faces the typical developmental and medical challenges associated with his condition. Most dwarf German Shepherds have shortened lifespans, often not exceeding 5 years. Despite these obstacles, Shelby remains focused on providing Ranger with the best possible care. At 2 years old, Ranger continues to live life to the fullest, displaying boundless energy and a playful spirit. He's healthy, happy, and enjoys frolicking with his family, which now includes 2 more dogs, Hazel and Jessie. Ranger's story has garnered global attention, with nearly 120,000 followers on his Instagram page. Shelby and her family plan to use any proceeds from Ranger's newfound popularity to cover his ongoing medical expenses, emphasizing their commitment to his well-being rather than profiting from his fame. In another surprising animal encounter, a group of construction workers in Estonia made an unexpected discovery while repairing the Sindi Dam on the Parnu River. They heard an unusual sound coming from a canine that turned out to be more than meets the eye. Approaching the riverbank, they noticed a distressed dog struggling in the icy water, prompting them to take immediate action to save the animal. The heroic rescue operation revealed that this seemingly ordinary dog had a unique appearance, with thick fur and striking yellow eyes. While the workers admired the dog's coat, they knew that only proper medical care could save her from hypothermia. With the rescued animal safely in their arms, the construction workers carefully placed the shivering creature inside their pickup truck and promptly contacted their local animal hospital, which advised them to bring her in immediately. The truck raced to the hospital, and during the entire journey, the animal remained still, even sleeping most of the way. It nestled its head on Kartset's lap, displaying a surprising level of comfort despite its dire condition. Upon their arrival at the hospital, veterinarians quickly took charge, carrying the animal inside and initiating the critical process of nursing her back to health. However, an unexpected revelation soon baffled everyone at the hospital. This was not a dog. Despite their expertise, the veterinarians found themselves unable to identify the creature. Perplexed, they sought the assistance of a local hunter to shed light on the situation. To everyone's surprise, the hunter promptly identified the animal. It was not a dog, but a wolf. The construction workers were left in shock, realizing they had completely misidentified the animal, and even more astonishingly, had transported a live wolf in their vehicle without any precautions. Had the wolf desired to, it could have posed a significant threat to them. Fortunately, the wolf's docility could be attributed to the sedative effects of the icy water it had been in, which explained its calm demeanor during the rescue. Nevertheless, This tranquility was temporary, as the wolf began exhibiting typical behaviors of a one-year-old wolf in a confined space. Concerned for everyone's safety, the doctors decided to place the wolf in a cage. By the end of the day, the animal had fully recovered, and the clinic was confident that she could be safely reintroduced into the wild. Nonetheless, Estonia's National Environmental Agency decided to equip the wolf with a GPS collar for added safety. When the time came to release the wolf, it made a swift and eager escape, vanishing back into the wilderness. Kart Sepp and his colleagues bid farewell to their newfound friend, marking the bittersweet conclusion of a truly unforgettable day of work. The Estonian Union for the Protection of Animals expressed its gratitude to all those involved in the incident, especially the construction workers who had rescued the wolf and the clinic's doctors who provided care without hesitation. Estonia, with a significant portion of Europe's wolf population, is no stranger to such occurrences. In fact, just a month after the wolf's encounter with the construction workers, it was spotted in the wild, over 70 miles from where it had been released, thriving in its natural habitat. Although some may find it difficult to believe that a wolf could be mistaken for a dog, cases of animal misidentification are not uncommon. Those who are unaware might unintentionally bring such doppelgangers home as pets. Take, for example, the story of Jostein Hansen, who encountered a tiny creature while dropping his kids off at school. Curious, he stopped his car and swiftly rescued the animal. Believing it to be a hamster, he intended to reunite it with its owner while keeping it safe in his glove box. To ensure the hamster's return to its rightful home, Jostein reached out to a Norwegian newspaper, i Tromsø. The assignment editor, Sanna Drobset Borstad, was initially surprised by the unusual task she was assigned. Pulitzer Prizes typically didn't go to journalists covering lost Norwegian rodents. Nonetheless, she met with Jostein and the rescued hamster, unaware of the extraordinary story that would unfold. The creature was playing Frogger in the middle of the road. That's so very lemming, right? The creatures, after all, have a reputation for chasing each other off cliffs. So Jostein kind of did it a favor, saving it from its nature. Nope. Contrary to their behavior in the popular video game series Lemmings, the critters are smart, master burrowers, and they like to go on the move when their homes get overcrowded. They do just fine in nature, no matter the weather. So back in the pet store, Jostein knew he needed to return the critter to the wild. He and Sanna returned to the road from which the lemming was originally rescued to let her run free in the snow, not in a wheel. Then, in the middle of a dark and dreary day, the duo released the lemming, waving at her as she made her way back home. Those involved couldn't help but laugh. They'd been a part of the world's most bizarre mistaken identity case. Sanna may not have won a Pulitzer with the story, but she was smiling by the end of the day. She covered a story that she didn't think she, or anyone involved, would ever forget. As for Jostein, while some thought to pile on the eager dad in the aftermath, the guy did pick up a wild animal while it was just hanging out. The pet store worker sided with the over-ambitious rescuer. He did the right thing, the worker said. He saw an animal he thought needed help. And to be fair, that lemming did look a lot like a hamster. In fact, Jostein's decision to help an animal he thought was in trouble is far better than the alternative, letting an animal suffer because you think it's a-okay. Jim Passmore of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, learned the same lesson. His usual stomping ground was Hakey Creek, a park frequented by outdoor lovers admiring the plentiful pecan trees. There, while waiting for his Yorkies to do their business, Jim spotted something out of the ordinary. A strange mass floated on the surface of the park's waters, sitting in stark contrast to the normally smooth surface of the creek. It was big, brown, and vaguely animal-like. Squinting to get a better look, he guessed the object was a log, but he wasn't sure. Edging closer to the shore, Jim stepped off the trail onto the muddy grass. If he could just get a closer look, he might be able to satisfy his curiosity. Finally, with a jolt, Jim realized the thing wasn't a thing after all. It was covered in brown hair. It was alive. Feeling lucky to glimpse a wild creature in its natural habitat, Jim was only more intrigued. The unknown animal was moving barely. Could it be gently stirring in its sleep? Floating, but rattled by a dream? Then his dogs began to snarl. The nearer Jim inched to the animal, the more riled up his tiny pups got. Their predatory snarls and growls made it seem like they sensed some looming danger. Nevertheless, he grew concerned by the animal's feeble movements. It looked desperate and stuck. Since the thing was hanging out in a wooded, muddy creek bank, all signs suggested it was a beaver. Then, fresh off the revelation, he noticed something hidden in the brush that hinted towards a more sinister situation. A carrier. The case was large, the kind used to transport pets to the vet, and appeared abandoned. Poking around inside, Jim discovered a large, filthy blanket. What worried him more was that beneath the blanket was a heavy-weighted chain. Standing there, Jim tried to piece together what was going on. Obviously, someone had discarded the carriage, judging by the haphazard scene. The dirty blanket, the chain, the bitten and mangled cage. A cruel individual had dumped a helpless creature in the wild. Someone, Jim thought, intended to harm the animal, but it escaped. While understanding washed over him, a rustling in the woods got his attention. Another beaver crawled out of the undergrowth. Jim took this as a sign. Not fleeing from human contact, the beaver moved into the open. Jim watched mystified as it crossed the ground and moved closer down the creek's edge, towards the mystery creature. Seeing as he had pegged the mystery animal as a beaver, Jim took this new beaver's fantastical intervention as a positive omen to trust his gut. He approached this beaver, creeping the final few feet towards the floating animal. The other animal stirred weakly, trapped in the muddy suction of the water. Side by side, Jim knew he'd guessed wrong. The creature was way too big to be a beaver, unless it was a radioactive giant one. All along, the creature in distress had been a big, fluffy dog. Muck and grime concealed a gorgeous collie. Glad he further investigated the mystery creature, Jim stepped into the creek, now determined to save him. Better safe than sorry, Jim called out to some other pedestrians to give him a hand freeing the dog. They gathered around him, but as Jim had feared, any contact sent the dog into frenzy mode. It bit someone who got too close. With the creature still stuck in the mud, Jim reevaluated their strategy. They needed to be careful. Grabbing onto the scared pooch would only freak it out further. So in order to unstick the cranky thing, they needed a distraction. A solution popped into Jim's noggin. The dog couldn't bite what it couldn't see. Grabbing a dark sweatshirt, he draped it on the suffering dog's head. Cutting out all vision and light worked like a charm. The hairy critter appeared soothed. Now that the dog was subdued, they had to yank it free. It slipped further into the mud, and so would the rescuers if they kept standing in the gloop. They needed a pulley system. Wrangling up a makeshift lift composed of dog leashes, they looped the ropes around its belly. Planting their feet, the gang heaved. You figure several able-bodied men would pluck the helpless creature out in seconds, but it was as if this guy had been super-glued. Finally, after one high-stakes game of tug-of-war, the dog slipped free. Elated, Jim pulled back the covering and wiped away the mud to reveal the dog's face. The dog appeared both thankful and understandably terrified, its eyes reflecting a mix of gratitude and fear. It was impossible to determine how long this poor creature had struggled to free itself from the thick mud, a predicament caused by its heartless owner who had callously abandoned it. All that could be confirmed was that this handsome doggy appeared remarkably healthy. Jim, a lifelong dog enthusiast, was seething with anger. The thought of anyone mistreating an animal, let alone their own pet, was beyond his comprehension. He swiftly dialed the police, and officers arrived promptly at the scene. Finally, the terrified pet had advocates on its side, and they immediately set to work ensuring its safety. Upon closer examination, the police began to unravel the heartbreaking truth of the dog's ordeal. Trapped inside an animal carrier, desperately trying to chew its way out, this sweet creature had been cruelly discarded on the street. At some point, the cage had been struck by a passing car, sending it tumbling into the nearby forest, where it came to rest in the mucky bank of a creek. By some incredible stroke of luck, the dog had survived this nightmarish ordeal, emerging physically intact but undoubtedly scarred mentally. If it hadn't been for Jim following the serendipitous appearance of a beaver, who knows if the poor creature would have ever escaped the clutches of the mud. Yet this magical encounter raised more questions than it answered. Was the beaver signaling the presence of a fellow animal in distress, or was it simply a coincidental event? However, there was no time to dwell on this mystery. The officers realized that the dog was in no condition to walk out of the paddock. They needed to get the sizable dog, whom they had affectionately named Teddy due to his resemblance to a stuffed animal, to a veterinarian for a thorough examination. Teddy was utterly drained from his battle with the mud, and his considerable weight, coupled with potential injuries, made it impossible to lead him on a leash. In an unexpected stroke of luck, the rescuers stumbled upon a wheelbarrow not far from the scene. Teddy was carefully wrapped in a blanket and placed in the wheelbarrow before being pushed out of the paddock. Jim's next call was to the Oklahoma Alliance for Animals. Within minutes, arrangements were made for Teddy to be taken under their care. In a way, Teddy had narrowly escaped yet another life-threatening situation. Joining the Oklahoma Alliance for Animals gave him a shot at rehabilitation. His fearful demeanor and justified distrust of humans would likely have sealed his fate if he had been taken to a conventional shelter. To complicate matters, Teddy had bitten one of his rescuers, a regrettable incident that often led to an animal being put down. However, the rescue group refused to lose hope for his future. Concerned that his aggression might be a result of rabies, they conducted tests to rule out the disease. The test results came back negative. Teddy was free from rabies. However, he still faced a challenging journey to regain his health and fitness. His movements were sluggish, and his overall demeanor was subdued. Shedding some pounds required increased activity. Once the compassionate rescue workers began showering Teddy with care and attention, his initial hostility melted away. In its place emerged a gentle, somewhat slimmer, long-coated sweetheart. Teddy's story gained widespread attention, and he garnered a large fan base cheering him on throughout his fitness journey. Teddy didn't have to wait long for his well-deserved happily ever after. Jesse, a veterinary technician working with the rescue group, fell head over heels for his sad puppy dog eyes. It seemed that the forces of nature had conspired to ensure that Teddy was found and granted the fairy tale life he so rightly deserved.